answer, but I'm going to explore it a little more. Tracy Municipal Airport's main runway was last measured at just under 4,000 feet, though its length was supposed to be slightly longer than 4,000 feet. And that seems important because the 4,000 foot mark is a designation between a smaller airport and a medium airport, and a medium-sized airport can have planes of a certain size land there, have their insurance carriers cover them to land and take off. Given all this, how important is it in your view to have the main runway length be longer than 4,000 feet? And overall, what role do you envision for Tracy Municipal Airport?
Great question. I actually live on the south end of town, and I enjoy driving out to the Tracy Airport, just off Tracy Boulevard, with my son Duncan. Occasionally we stop out there and watch the planes fly in, land, and then take off again. The airport could definitely be an asset, and at this point it's not viewed as one, but it could definitely be one. As far as the length of the runway goes, it sounds like somebody dropped the ball in allowing the construction company to get away with not putting in the proper length. There should have been some follow-up on that. Most likely it's the city's responsibility there. If that's what needs to be, if the airport is 4 to 6 feet longer, then it needs to be returned and made right. That's all that needs to be done. But the airport can be used in many different ways. Obviously, it could be a transit hub. It could be a business hub. For now, I think the impression is that it's used for if you guys own planes to give lessons and fly around town, and perhaps some stunts above my house in Glenbriar, which we also enjoy. But the truth is that there's a lot more. It could be an asset. The runway needs to be returned to a proper length if that's what it was prior to. And we need to start taking advantage of the resources, especially if it means further economic development or bringing in additional revenue to the city. Just like anything else, growth is prosperous, and I'd like to see the airport move in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morales?
Did I answer this already? Like I said before, the runway, it was short, and couldn't go after the contractor because of the time limit. But I know, just like what Roger said, that if it was a private company, boy, somebody would be reprimanded or even fired. Too bad, too bad. And like I said even earlier, that the airport can really be a business center. And that's why we need to have the runway over 4,000 feet. We cannot allow it to be shorter. It's not a small airport. I know that there's been talk of wanting executive jets to come into the airport, but they can't because of the short airfield. So we need to really improve that. And just like Charlie said, he's been out there, and he lives on the south part of town. Well, as a 13, 14-year-old kid, I took my first airplane ride at the Tracy Airport. And boy, was it something. Those are the kind of things that Tracy is. And that's what makes it really friendly and warm. Those kind of things that you can do it here in Tracy. And that is what contributes to our quality of life. So we need an airport that is going to be vibrant and thrive businessly. So we need to put our time, effort, even some money into that airport. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Tracy Airport and the runway. I'd have to say only second to the Aquatic Center did that get a lot of discussion as well. We were there probably till almost midnight with that discussion, all the different measurements and the different statements that were repeated, whether it was this long or that long. And we understand that the ramifications of that is important, and that it differentiates whether we're between a small and a medium-sized airport. Don't want to limit the vision for Tracy, because many visionaries have gotten us to the point where we are now, and we don't want to stifle vision. But at the same time, we have to look at Tracy Airport, and just like our parks and our other community services, they're part of a whole package of services that we offer to the residents of Tracy. And it will be my responsibility as a council person to understand all the things that's going on with the airport and all the other services that we offer, and act on the performance of all of those services so that we're getting the most out of our money and that we're providing the real needed services at that particular time for our residents. So like I said, we don't want to crush vision, but we also want to be realistic in all that we commit to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Birdsall, your question.
This is a good subject. It's a subject that I like to talk about. Number one, it's always been a redheaded stepchild ever since I've lived in town. I have bought an airplane there. I have flown out of that airport. It's a very convenient airport to the Bay Area. When you really look at it, there are only 2 public airports in the whole county. It is hard to get an airport approved by the FAA. And when the FAA comes in and starts to allocating money for an airport, they're going to take care of the metropolitan cities. Then they're going to go to the large airport, then to the medium, and what's left over gets spent on a small airport. Right now, being undersized, we are going to be a small airport. We need to get back over 4,000 feet. Now, why do you need to be over 4,000 feet? There are certain types of aircraft, certain types of planes, like different size planes, that in their insurance policy, it states you cannot land on anything less than 4,000 feet. Obviously, you don't use the whole runway to land an airplane, but when it says it in insurance, people are not going to fly in. And when they do fly in, you have a great opportunity of putting gas in all the gas sales tax dollars. When I had a plane, it takes 84 gallons of gas to fill it up. So that is important. The other part to it is an airport is a tremendous asset to the city. Livermore is a very good example of it, where it was 20 years ago, where it is today. Another city is Auburn. You go up to Auburn, and that airport has got businesses all the way around the airport. It's a great, great business park. When you talk about economic development, the airport has a lot to do with it. The other side to that, when you want to start talking about companies and economic development moving into the city, many of those companies have airplanes. That's how they move around. And if we didn't have an airport that is suitable for them, we're not going to get the company. And I think that's one of the things that is extremely important. Bring it back up to the 4,002 feet or 4,003 feet, and let's get back to the business of the airport. It's a definite asset.
I believe the Tracy Airport always has been an asset to the community. It is an asset to the community. I remember years ago, still in farming, there was criticism of the aerobatic box. People wanted to get rid of the aerobatic box. I consider that to be a vital amenity to the airport. And I was vocal about, accepting the aerobatic box as it was, and because it would bring business to the airport. Those folks would bring in their aircraft, do their stunt flying at the aerobatic box as prescribed by the FAA, and patronize the airport. Specifically about the runway length, I've always been curious. It's been recently alleged that when resurfacing was done, the runway was shortened. I don't know if that's the case or not. I don't know. I mean, that airport's been there a long time. There ought to be some reference to what the original runway lengths were. It should be, whatever it was, that's what it should be. If we want to lengthen it at some point, let's do the work for that. My concern is that, first of all, we should try to make the Tracy Airport all that it can be. We also have to recognize that there are some physical limitations because the airport's landlocked. As Tracy Boulevard on one side, Corral Hollow on the other, it's to extend runways significantly, it would be a challenge. But I'm open to exploring possibilities, what can be done. We have governing bodies that address aircraft safety that are there as a reference and establish guidelines. Sadly, the airport has become a bit of a hot potato,
and a lot of things are said about it and kicked around. And, you know, I think I'd like to see everybody take a deep breath. The airport advocates, you know, sit down with the city, and I know there's been ongoing discussions, but, you know, I think get on the same sheet for the benefit, the long-term benefit of the airport, to make it all that it can be.
Thank you.